Hey there, Mindsetters. My name is Megan, and welcome grade 12 to today's accounting show. Today we have a special revision lesson prepared for you on reconciliations. We'll be selecting highlights from the lessons shown early in the term to help you revise for your end-of-term test. You can download the notes for today's show on learnextra.co.za/live.
What did we say about the bank reconciliation statement? Remember we said that both the business and the bank, what do? They keep a record of the transactions that they have entered into. How do we know what records the bank has kept? Surely, guys, at the end of the month, we're going to receive our bank statement. That's the one we're receiving. And this is then compared with our cash journals. Got that? So keep that in mind as the background. Now, definitely, you're going to find differences. The word reconcile, I'm sure, may have applied in your lives at some times when you were a bit not too good with your boyfriend or girlfriend, and then you had to reconcile. Okay? So that's what accounting teaches you as well. So you see, accounting is a life skill, and it teaches you how to behave in certain instances. So this, guys, means we now have to find the reasons for the differences. Remember, you can only reconcile something if you know what the difference is. And the word reconcile means to bring together. Okay? So now, the first one we'll be dealing with is your bank charges. Understand that in today's time, this forms a very important cost to businesses. So what happens is, when you receive your bank statement, you determine what were your bank charges, and as a result of that, you will now enter these bank charges into your cash payments journal. In other words, you're updating your cash payments journal. Why? The bank has recorded it in their books. You now need to update your records. Interest on overdraft. The question arises, why do we keep it separate from bank charges? A very important question. Remember, grade 12s, that when you are drawing up your income statement, which we will do, I'm sure, in later shows, you will always find that interest is always kept as a separate item. Now, always have an inquiring mind. Why is that? The reason? Because interest on overdraft is not an operating expense. Interest on overdraft, guys, is a financing expense, and as a result, needs to be shown separately. Keep that always in the back of your minds. So, enter into your cash payments journal as well. Interest on current account, this is when we are receiving interest. Obviously, you're going to enter it into your cash receipts journal. What about a dishonored check? Remember, a dishonored check is a check that we have received, and you hear people saying the check has bounced, meaning that the person who had given you the check does not have sufficient money in the account to honor the check. Remember, guys, that's not the only reason. There may be an error on the check. There may be 2 signatories required and only 1 person signed it. Whatever the reason is, a dishonored check, we will enter into our cash payments journal. Direct deposits. Yes, we're living in a technological age. You find that because of safety reasons, people sometimes feel that instead of walking with money to go and buy something or to go and pay for something, what they do is they make a direct deposit. We often refer to this one as an EFT. And it's very, very common these days. What is that? An electronic fund transfer. That means from the comfort of your home, you can sit on your laptop and you can pay your accounts. Watch, guys. This is becoming the in thing these days. And how does it affect the bank recon? You as a business will only come to know about the EFT when you have received your bank statement. So monies that you have received will go into your cash receipts journal, and monies that you have paid out would go into your cash payments journal. So what's the procedure? What do we do? Okay, we will now compare step number 1 with the previous month's bank recon. Why is that? Why do you think we're going to do that? We're going to do that in order to identify items that were outstanding last month, and now these items have gone through. Okay? So that's the reason why what we're going to do when we are comparing with the previous month's bank reconciliation statement. Then, compare your cash receipts journal against the credit side of the bank statement. Why is that? Because the relationship between you and your bank is one of debtor and creditor. Put very simply, when we have money in the bank, we are saying that our books record a debit balance, indicating an asset, indicating that we have money in the bank. Let's change that perspective. From the bank side, what will the bank say? The bank will say, we are owing money to ABC Traders. So can you see the relationship? That of debtor and creditor? So obviously, a debit in our books would be reflected as a credit in the books of the bank. So therefore, compare your cash receipts journal with the credit side of the bank statement. What we will also do is we will compare the cash payments journal with the debit side of the bank statement, and in so doing, you will find that you will now be able to, you will also have to, I need to move this one slightly up.
Oh,
Okay,
gosh.
let's see what happens here.
Use your little finger. Use your
I
finger.
think so.
Oh,
Let's
wait.
go for it, doesn't
Oh, wait,
it?
what about the little bar there?
Which one? This
On
one?
the left.
There's it. Made it.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So guys, the finger works sometimes, eh? Okay, sometimes we also have to compare the salaries journal with what? With the bank statement. And why does that happen? Remember, when you have issued checks to pay salaries, those are appearing as individual checks in your salaries journal. And therefore, you need to compare your salaries journal against the bank statement as well. Okay, guys? So that's the procedure around the bank reconciliation statement. Now, what does my bank reconciliation statement look like? And what is most important is to remember that your bank reconciliation statement, grade 12s, listen carefully. Right now, I need your full attention, your mind, your body, and your soul, to be listening to what I'm saying. Your bank reconciliation statement is an extension of your bank statement. In other words, what would happen if these transactions were processed? What impact would they have had on my bank statement? That's exactly what I'm going to do when I draw up my bank reconciliation statement. Watch. You start off with either a debit or a credit balance as per your bank statement. Now remember this, it's important. Which balance in your bank statement? Obviously, if this is an extension of my bank statement, I would start with the last balance. That is, the closing balance in my bank statement, would be the opening balance of my bank reconciliation statement. Got that? Great. Then, all those checks that are outstanding, what do we mean by an outstanding check? An outstanding check is a check that we have written out, and because we've given it to Mr. Cheese, or Miss Cheese,
Miss Cheese.
who
Or
doesn't,
Mrs. Cheese.
or Mrs. Cheese, who doesn't need the money. So, what do? They just keep it away. In our books, we've entered the check. Does the bank know that we've written out a check? Certainly not. So when will they find out? When that check is presented for payment. Until such time, that check needs to appear in my bank reconciliation statement as an outstanding check. Meaning what? Meaning that this check has not been presented for payment. Got that? Brilliant. The next item that we'll be looking at is the outstanding deposit. Now, a question should be posed at this stage. Why would there be an outstanding deposit? Shouldn't all the deposits be shown on my bank statement? Okay, guys, let me paint a picture for you. Let me create a scenario for you. You have received your bank statement on the 25th of the month. What about the deposit that you have made on the 26th, the 27th, and the other days to month end? Surely those deposits cannot appear on your bank statement because you have it in your possession already. So therefore, these deposits would now be entered into next month. They would feature on the bank statement. But for now, they would be reflected on my bank reconciliation statement. Okay, errors made by the bank. May sound far-fetched, but definitely can happen. And how does this happen? Okay, let's look at an example here. Let's assume that my account number is 1234. Okay? And somebody, perchance, in haste maybe, on their deposit slip, indicates the account number 1234 on their deposit. What's going to happen? That money is now going to be shown as an amount in my bank account. No fault of the bank. Obviously, the opposite party had made an error. But in terms of us and our bank, this is deemed to be an error made by the bank. And therefore, this type of error will be corrected in my bank reconciliation statement. Okay. We will also then do the corrections in the following manner. Either debit an incorrect credit, or we will credit an incorrect debit. So this, grade 12s, would then bring you to the end of your bank reconciliation statement, and then you will end off with either a debit or a credit balance as per your bank account. And when this balance balances your bank reconciliation statement, voila, a feeling, or a great feeling when those two balances agree.
Let's go to a short break now. Remember, if you are struggling and you need help, remember to post your comments and questions on our Facebook page, facebook.com/LearnExtra, or on Twitter @LearnExtra. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. Let's get into some more revision. Over to you.
Guys, we're now ready to move on to our first example on a creditor's recon. In other words, where the creditor's ledger balance is going to be different from the statement. So let's now look at this exercise. Example 1, Poodle Pet Shop. Poodle's Pet Shop received an account statement, statement number 114, dated 28th May 2009 from Ray B's Vets. So we've got Poodle's Pet Shop, so that is the business, and then we've got the creditor, who is Ray B's Vets. So let's just quickly write this down, because I know, guys, sometimes the names can be confusing in a test or an exam. So Poodle's Pet Shop is the business. Okay, in other words, we are the accountants for Poodle Pet Shop. And then we've got our creditor, Ray B. Vets. So I'm just going to put a C there. That's our creditor. Let's read on. According to an agreement with Ray B's Vets, Poodle's Pet Shop receives a 20% trade discount. In other words, remember, guys, this is normal business practice. If, for example, you want to improve your sales, you often offer incentives like a trade discount on all invoices, and additional 5% cash discount. So a cash discount if payment is made within 30 days of the account date. Statement 114. So remember, guys, the statement is your external record. It's coming from the creditor itself. Shows a debit balance of 27,888 Rand. So according to this statement that comes from the creditor, we are owing 27,888 Rand. Guys, when I say we, remember, I'm talking about the business. We are the accountants for Poodle Pet Shop. The accounting officer compared the statement with Ray B. Vet's account in the creditor's ledger. So the accountant, which is us, we then compared the statement that we received to our records, to the creditor's ledger, which showed a credit balance of 10,712. So there's obviously a discrepancy. The amounts are different. And then found the following differences. Okay. Right, guys, I'm not going to look at the differences immediately. Let's just go to the answer sheet first. Okay, there we go. Let's just extend that page there. So let's look at what is required, and then we go to the differences. We have to calculate the correct amount due to Ray B. Vets on the 31st of May 2009. In other words, we now need to reconcile the creditor's ledger. Remember, this is our internal document. This is what we have prepared, which is showing a balance of 10,712 Rand. We've got to now compare the internal document to the statement that was received, the external document, the statement that was received from the creditor, which is showing a balance of 27,888. The comparison, guys, is already done, and they're now giving us a list of differences that they've found. So let's now tackle, or let's go straight to those differences that was discovered. Okay, the very first difference. Invoice 189, so the word invoice represents a purchase, was correctly recorded in the creditor's ledger, so correctly recorded in the creditor's ledger as 11,200. Statement 114 reflects the invoice amount as 14,000. So immediately there's the first error. According to our creditor's ledger, we made a purchase, and the purchase amount was 11,200, but according to the statement that has arrived, this amount is 14,000. The trade discount, so there's the mistake. The trade discount was not taken into account. Okay, now remember, guys, right at the top, we read, right at the beginning of the question, that they receive a 20% trade discount. So there's the difference. So let's now look at that 20% trade discount. There's two ways of looking at it. Let's get our calculators out first, guys. So we've got an amount of Okay, let's just shift that. Right, so we've got an amount on the statement which is 11,200. Oh, let's just clear that, guys. Of 14,000 is what's on the statement. But according to the creditor's ledger, it's 11,200, so minus 11,200. So the statement obviously left out the discount of 2,800. Now let's just quickly check whether we're actually correct. The purchase price, guys, was 14,000. And we should get a discount of 20%, so times 20%, and there we go. So there's that 2,800 that was omitted. So let's now enter this 2,800. Remember, guys, the 2,800 is the mistake made by or on the statement itself. Now, if you're receiving a discount, what happens to the purchase price that you should pay? Correct, it should decrease. So we're now going to decrease, let's get a pen out there, we're going to decrease in brackets, represents we're going to subtract 2,800. Okay. Sure, Indy, it's been a while because I've forgotten how to write.
It's okay.
Yeah,
I think you're doing great.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, guys, that was the first error. Let's now look at the next error. Okay, so our next error, we've got, let's just put, yeah, there we go, a credit note. Okay, immediately, guys, credit note. Alarm bell should start ringing. Credit note means that we have, and I'm not going to test Indy, a credit note means that we have returned items. So a credit note 73 for 320 Rand was correctly entered in the creditor's ledger. So we correctly entered this in the creditor's ledger, but it is shown as an invoice on the statement 114. Okay, now guys, very important, understand the error that has taken place. We have returned items with a value of 320 Rand. So just picture, for example, you now taking an item and you are returning the item. Instead of them obviously reducing your balance by 320 Rand, which should be done, they now mistakenly took it as a purchase and they increased your balance by 320 Rand. Now imagine, you don't even have the goods, but now they're actually charging you for those goods as well. So there's the actual error that has taken place. How are we going to correct this error? Let's go to our answer sheet. So remember, guys, it's not an error made by us. It is an error that is coming from the outside. So we are now going to tell them, hang on, guys, you have to now fix this error. So we're going to take away 320, but at the same time, by us removing 320 Rand, all we're doing is fixing the mistake itself. We're not recording the credit note. So we're going to obviously now double this subtraction. So we're going to subtract a further 320 Rand. Okay. Right, let's move on now, guys. Indy, do we have any questions so far?
Let me have a look on this here page. You know what, Mahesh? I'm going to say to the mindsetters, guys, post all of your questions onto the page. Make sure that they relate to what we're talking over. And when we have our next break, we'll go over and make sure that we find the best questions so we can push them out very fast.
Okay, brilliant. Right, next error. We've got Ray B's vet's account in the creditor's ledger was added up incorrectly. It's undercast by 7,200 Rand. So this is now, guys, a mistake on our part. In other words, we've made a mistake in the creditor's ledger where we added incorrectly, and it happens. You know it happens. You've made that mistake as well. So we've added incorrectly, and the account is undercast, or understated by 7,200. So remember, guys, from bank recon, if something is understated or undercast, you correct the error by adding on that amount, in this case to our creditor's ledger. So let's go now to the creditor's ledger, and we're now going to add 7,200. Okay, let's just quickly go up. And make sure, yeah, 7,200. Right, guys, next error. Invoice 194 for 6,280 Rand. So we've got an invoice, 6,280 Rand, has not yet been recorded in your creditor's journal because the goods are in transit. In other words, it's appearing in the statement because remember, your creditor has already sent the goods, but the goods still in transit, it hasn't arrived to your shop itself. So we now need to include this entry. It's a purchase, the goods are, yes, on its way, but we now going to include this entry in our creditor's ledger total. So 6,280 is now going to be added on. 6,280 will be added on to our creditor's ledger. Right, guys, almost done with this question. The final error. We've got invoice 208 included 8 items that were on special and invoiced for the gross price of 160 Rand per item. The trade discount was not taken into account on these items. So again, the trade discount being omitted, being left out, and obviously it is an error on the part of the creditor itself. So let's now get the calculator out again and let's do a calculation. So we've got, there we go, so we've got 8 items, so 8 times 160. Let's just move that a bit so we make sure that we're getting the correct amount. So it's 8 times 160. Get the calculator back there. Okay, and then we should get a discount of 20%. So our discount, 256 Rand, that was omitted, that was left out on the statement itself. So let's now enter that, 256 Rand that was left out. And remember, guys, a discount, obviously, what was that amount? Let's go back there. It was 256 Rand, so 256. Okay, right. Time to check whether we have still made an error or whether this is now going to reconcile. In other words, the two totals are going to reconcile. So let's start by adding. Okay, let's start with our statement. And again, let's get the calculator out, guys. Okay, let's just clear that there. So we started off a total of 27,888. Okay, on the statement. Then we now need to subtract 2,800. Okay, we then need to subtract 320. Okay, and then another 320. And then finally, we've got 256 to give us 24,192. So let's now fill that amount in. 24,192. I'm just going to extend the page a bit, guys. Where we go? Where's that? Oh, there it is. Okay. Right, so let's now look at our creditors ledger. Okay. And again, let's just move this a bit. Now I'm going to come on this side for a little while. So we've got 10,712, and we're now adding 7,200, and then we are adding 6,280 to give us 24,192. So let's just write that in. Okay, so we're getting 24,192. Okay, guys, what do you notice? Okay, what have we just done? We have reconciled our records to the statement that we received. Okay.
Let's go to a short break now. Remember, if you are struggling and you need help, remember to post your comments and questions on our Facebook page, facebook.com/LearnExtra, or on Twitter @LearnExtra. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. let's get into some more revision.
What we're going to do today is we're going to discuss ethics and internal controls. Now, this is a section that you're probably familiar with because it has been covered in grade 10 and grade 11 as well, but it is something that can come up in almost any question. So it is something that you need to think carefully about. It's something that you have to know about. So I'm going to start off just describing the objectives of what we're going to do tonight. First of all, you need to understand some key ethical concepts, which I'm going to explain to you. Then we're going to go through some of the principles of internal control. Then we will explain the difference between external and internal auditors, and then apply some ethical and control measures to solve accounting problems. And tonight's problem is going to have to do with bank reconciliation, which is grade 11 work, but which can be asked to you in grade 12 as well. So the first thing that we need to look at are some key concepts in ethical behavior. Ethical behavior is something that's probably close to our hearts today because it's Valentine's Day and because we're speaking about this pay it forward and this kindness, which Indy's already told you about. So, Indy, what does it mean to you to be ethical?
For me to be ethical, to be true to myself, to be kind to others, to be not breaking the law.
Not breaking the law.
Is that
And
number one?
that's going to be the number one thing that we need to make sure of, that we as accountants, if you're an accountant student and you're going to become an accountant someday, it's going to be very important for you to be sure that what you're doing is legal, what you're doing is ethical, and what you're doing is basically just being good to your fellow human beings. So very often, a business will have something that they call a code of ethics. A code of ethics, I'm sure you've heard of this before. This is simply an ethical code that sort of tells employees what they should be doing, tells employees how they should behave ethically, tells employees what is right and what is wrong. So I'm just going to put a short definition here for you. It's a code that governs the conduct of employees. It really tells you how you should behave. And at various schools, you might have a code of conduct which tells you what you should do, how you should wear your uniform, what is the right way to treat your teachers, what is the right way to show respect to your classmates. That would be a type of code of ethics. And a business can use a code of ethics in order to help its employees behave in an ethical or in a good manner. Now, some principles in ethics that you will see in many of the textbooks are, firstly, transparency. If something is transparent, it means that you can see through it. So when we deal with transparency in an ethical manner, it means that decisions that are made in the business must be clear. We need to know why the business has behaved in that way. We need to know what procedures were followed. We need to know what the business has done and what conditions the business has chosen in order to apply their rules. So for example, if somebody gets promoted, if an employee gets promoted, we would like to know whether the business has been free and fair in promoting that person. So those would be principles of transparency. The second one that's very important that you'll see often is accountability. Almost has the name of our subject, accounting. If we are discussing accountability, it means that there are people that take responsibility for what's going on in the business. So for example, let's say that you have gone to a shop and you're dissatisfied with the service. If somebody comes and helps you and gives you good service and solves your problem, then that person has been taking accountability for their actions. So accountability is simply going to be taking responsibility, that there is somebody in the business that you can speak to deal with your particular issue. Okay, another very, very important one. You will often see this, and this is particularly important for somebody who is an accountant, is due care. Due care just means that the person in the job has tried everything that they can to make sure that what they're doing is correct. So for instance, if a nurse in a hospital was to show due care, she would have to make sure that she checks up on her patients, that she does everything she can to prescribe the correct medicine, and so on and so forth. For an accountant, due care means checking the books, making sure that the books balance, filling in everything in the best possible way. So due care is just, if you are an accountant, you will make sure that you handle the books according to what you've been taught, according to your ability. Then another important one is integrity. Integrity is just something showing good moral behavior, being trustworthy, never breaking your promises, never going back on your word. If somebody were to live like that with integrity, then everybody would think that that is a very good person and that person is behaving in a good, ethical manner. Now, another thing that often comes up, I'm just showing you some key words that you might see in a question. There is something called a conflict of interests. This you will see often, and you might have to identify it and use that terminology in an exam or in a test situation. A conflict of interest comes in when there is a person in a business that has got a conflict of interests with another person. For instance, what might happen, let's say that I own a computer shop and I've got an employee, and that employee is working for me, and what this employee does is repair computers. Let's say also that that employee has got a computer shop at home. Now somebody comes in to have their laptop or their computer repaired, and that employee of mine says, listen, come to my house tonight and I'll charge you half the price of what this shop is charging you. My house is just around the corner. That client will then leave my business and go and take his computer to my employee. And that is a conflict of interests. This just arises when there are possible conflicts between employees or between people because of the relationship between them. For instance as well, let's say that a boss promotes her husband to a senior management role. Okay? That could cause a conflict of interest if there was another person that might be much more qualified, much more experienced, but that person's not getting the job because the boss wants to give her husband a better position. So something like that could cause a conflict of interest. Now, there are just a couple of other things, a couple of other pieces of terminology that you might encounter with ethics. We've just had the African Cup of Nations, so I'm sure many of you have been watching some of the games, and you may have seen the referees with their whistles. In ethics, you might sometimes see something called whistleblowing. That is not what happens on the football field. What that actually is if you discover unethical behavior in a business and you tell somebody about it. So, this is discovering unethical behavior, and what you then do is you tell someone. Sorry, I've spelled behavior the American way. Let me just change it. So you discover unethical behavior in a business, and you actually blow the whistle. It's almost as if you're calling the cops. You're getting people to investigate. You're getting people to commit fraud. So let's say, for example, that your boss comes to you and says that he has stolen some money from the business, or you discover that your boss has stolen money from the business. If you go and tell somebody more important or somebody higher up, you are actually committing whistleblowing. You are making people aware that a problem is occurring. So, Indy, what do you think about whistleblowing? Do you think that somebody should do that?
I do. I really think if there are problems, it needs to come out, and I think everything should be transparent, and everyone should be above board, and it's all about honesty, to be honest. That's what I think, my opinion.
All about honesty, and I agree with you totally. So what we should do in a business is we should try and make sure that all the people participating in the business are always behaving ethically, and if they discover that somebody is doing something wrong, I believe that they should blow the whistle. Of course, mindset is sometimes if you blow the whistle, you could yourself get into trouble, because if your boss finds out that you know that he's been stealing money from the business, he might get very upset with you, and he might treat you badly at work, or he might try and cut your salary, or he might just be plain horrible to you.
Now, lots of people don't want to whistleblow because it does put them in that exact predicament. Yeah.
Exactly.
It should be made easier to whistleblow, I think. There should be more protection.
Definitely more protection.
Yeah.
So if you are ever in a situation like that, you will need to weigh up the consequences of blowing the whistle. I personally believe that it's the right thing to do. If you discover fraud and corruption, you should immediately tell somebody that's important about it. Okay, then there's another one that's particular to your grade 12 syllabus, which is insider trading. Insider trading comes up a lot in questions, and I'm sure you've seen it in some of the past papers that you've been working through. So you need to understand what we mean by insider trading. If we talk about insider trading, what this means is that you, as a shareholder in a company that also is working for that company, find out some special information and you buy or you sell shares based on that information that nobody else knows. So let me give you an example. Let's say that I am the CFO of a big company, and I discover that in 1 year we are going to make a massive loss. It's going to be the biggest loss in the history of this company, and tomorrow we're going to announce it. What will I do? I'll immediately go and sell my shares left, right, and center to anybody I can find, because I know that tomorrow when I make that announcement, the share price is going to fall down. Would you do that, Indy?
I wouldn't be able to, because I wouldn't be able to look the people that I've sold the shares to in the face. I'd be very embarrassed, actually.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because you are going to sell something to people, and then tomorrow they're going to lose all their money. So that is something that's very, very unethical, and there are severe sentences and penalties in South Africa for committing insider trading. So it just really means that if you own shares in a business, you should not buy or sell them based on information that only you have. Okay, then you just also need to understand the terms fraud and corruption. Fraud really just arises in any business situation where you are doing something that is unethical, you are falsifying documents, or you are falsifying information. You're basically lying to somebody in order to take the money for your own benefit. So for example, let's say that an employee has been asked to buy some TV monitors for the boardroom. Let's say they want to have video conferencing or something like that, and they want to buy TV monitors for the boardroom. So what they then do is they are supposed to buy 10 TV monitors, but then they decide, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I want a TV monitor like that for my own house. So they just write an invoice for 11 TV monitors, and then the company has to pay the money, and they take the TV monitors for themselves. Mindsetters, don't try this sort of thing, because if you do, you're committing fraud, and there'll be penalties if you get caught. Similar to fraud, it's a word that we hear very often, is corruption. Corruption is very similar to fraud, except that it's more than one person all grouping together to try to act unethically. So in the previous example that I used, it's one employee that was writing out the false invoice for those TVs. In corruption, the whole management team would decide to buy lots and lots and lots of TVs and take them for their own consumption, but bill the business so that they can all get away with it. So fraud and corruption are things that should be avoided, and we should try to root them out. If you discover fraud and corruption in your business someday, what you should do is you should blow the whistle and do the right thing, do the moral thing. So those are just some terms that you will sometimes discover when we are dealing with ethics. Now, we know what is ethical and what is unethical, and we know that there's a code of ethics that tells us what the right thing to do is.
Well, guys, we've come to the end of today's show. Thanks for joining me. Remember to visit our website, learnextra.co.za/live, to get the notes and to watch the videos. And if you are stuck and you have any questions, send an email to helpdesk@learnextra.co.za and we will help you. Also, guys, we are dedicating the month of March to Library Month. Join us as we discuss some great books and some exciting competitions on the way. Goodbye.